On today's show, we'll look at certain dancers' moves that may be a bit disturbing. We'll look into the future of HBCU bands and see what it might be. And also talk about BCU versus Southern. Was it all that it was cracked up to be? All this and more coming up next on Luke's Band Report. Good evening, afternoon, or whenever you're watching me right now. My name is Jay Luke, the owner and operator of the Passion Is Network and the host of Talk That Talk. You can follow us on Instagram or TikTok at Real Talk That Talk. And you can also pick up any of our merchandise at www.realtalkthattalk.com. All right, so first things first, I want to go ahead and jump into this, but before I do that, I wore my Real Ridge Mighty Eagle Band shirt for this specific occasion. Unfortunately, I have some bad news off the top, and that bad news comes with me saying that I just found out, I want to say maybe a couple of minutes ago, that I lost, or that we lost, the Mighty Eagle Band family lost someone, important to us, because she was definitely part of our family. But one of the bigger things is she was my first section leader, and she was a great one. Typically when you get into band for your first time and you really go through that process of being in band and understanding all the nuances of what band brings, you never forget your first section leader if they're a good one. And so, as we like to say, fly eagle, to one of our fallen eagles. So rest in peace to you, Chantrice. You definitely were a great leader, a great musician, and a great educator. So you will be missed. With that being said, I'm going to try my best to get through this show today, but let's go ahead and get into it. So there is a move out there that dancers are doing, and for me, first I'm going to talk about for me, and then I'm going to jump into some comments that I've had. And so the move that I'm talking about is, I guess the person I really talked to about it, they called it the butt wiggle. I want to say it's the butt wiggle. I think that's what they said. It's called the butt wiggle, or she calls it the butt wiggle. For me, it's just kind of this move, and you'll see it as it goes across the screen, but it's really just kind of this move that I feel is just really overtly sexual. And the funny thing about it is, and we've had this conversation on Talk That Talk before, but the funny thing about it for me is just the fact that it's kind of like we say, let's not over-sexualize, but then we end up over-sexualizing. And honestly, I don't even think the move would be that bad per the outfit that you're wearing, right? But I think that it tends to cross certain lines when we start wearing certain things that are going to accentuate certain body types and so on and so forth. And so, I just think it's a really weird move. Not necessarily weird, but just not a becoming move. She called it a butt twirl. That's what she calls it, a butt twirl. And so I just think that, and I want to hear you guys or see you guys' perspective on it. What do you all feel about this particular move? It's like everybody's doing it now. And so somebody that I talked to, former dancer, she said, it's not that bad, except for when they used to do it. And we're talking about like 06, 07, 08, somewhere around there. When they used to do it, they didn't do it with the butt towards the audience. They did it with the butt, obviously, the opposite way. So I think that within itself, to me, is where the line draws, right? Like the point is for you to overtly show your cheeks at this point. And I think that we have to probably represent ourselves better. That's just my personal opinion, right? Like at some point we have to say, you know what, this particular move is not okay because we're actually showcasing something that we probably shouldn't be showcasing. And and I think about it from a lot of different perspectives. I think about it from the perspective of the fact that I was an educator. Or I always say was. I'm an educator, and because I'm an educator, when I think about my students, I think about my young dancers. My young dancers aspire to be the young ladies that you see in university programs, and so they're going to aspire to do moves that are very similar to the young ladies that you see in the university programs. And so especially even nowadays when you're getting these high school programs, when you're getting younger high school coordinators. And so you get these younger high school coordinators that come from these particular programs that are either doing this move or are okay with these young ladies, emulating what they see. And then, not even going to talk about how they pick uniforms that aren't necessarily becoming of these young ladies. But, so that's my first part about it, just thinking from a high school band director perspective. But then on top of that, I have two daughters, right? And while I understand dance is dance, and there will be some things that, clothing wise, that may not always be in the best interest, there are some things that I feel like are just, to my personal opinion, a little bit too inappropriate. If you're going to do that move, just don't put your cheek in the camera. But I think right now we have just become overtly sexual and what our young ladies are doing. And because of that, I personally just have a problem with the butt twirl. That's what she called it, the butt twirl. Now, the other former dancer that I spoke with said that she absolutely has a problem with it. And she has a problem with it from the perspective very similar to the same thing that I said, right? Like, why do we need to be overtly sexual in order to be able to dance for the most part, right? Like, is this the thing that we're doing that needs to be able to showcase is this the thing that we need to do in order to try to get the clicks and the likes and the views? Can we do something different that does not have to necessarily be in that same vein, that doesn't necessarily have to be in that same magnitude? And so that's the general conversation which we were having, and that's just where I sit with it. Will this be something that will change the game? Probably not. I don't know, but what I do know is that if I'm watching a dance group in the stands, or if I'm watching wherever they're at, and I see your cheeks pointed towards the camera with your fingers under your meat crease, I'm kind of like, well, why? Like, what is this move? What is the purpose of this move? Like, what are you trying to convey to your audience? What are you trying to showcase? Why this move versus something else that you probably could have done that probably was a little bit more becoming? I'll say becoming. So that's my thoughts on that. You guys tell me what you all feel down in the comment section. All right. To the next topic, and it actually goes right in to what we were talking about, right? So, and I'm going to start it out by saying, or going back to what I said earlier, when we start talking about these moves and things like that, what image is that portraying to our audience, to the people who are watching us, and so on and so forth, right? With that being said, further on down the line, how far are we going to go until we say, all right, enough is enough? How far is this going to be able to go? And see, some people will probably listen and be like, bro, you're overly tripping. You're going a little too far, right? I don't think so. I really don't think so. I'm going to put a pause on why I don't think so, and I'm going to go to the next thing. When we think about HBCU bands and how we portray and how we move and things that we do, right? The style that we play in, the level of education that is being showcased in what we do on the field and in the stands and so on and so forth. And I'm not even saying that we're not being educated, but what I will say is, on average, I've talked to a lot of people, and even myself, I'm a product of HBCU music education programs, right? It's been said multiple times that we when we graduate students, in a lot of cases, they're not prepared to go out into the world and be, respectable educators. And I ain't gonna say necessarily respectable educators, but what I'll say prepared to do the thing or to do the job that is going to be put in front of them. Multiple times, or most of the time, we are unprepared, and a lot of times undereducated, and to traverse into the next process. And one thing that we tend to do, and Crystal was just talking about it on her car confessions, is we lack the idea to get a mentor, because we come from a space where we have to be the best. We have to be the dominant one. We are fighting to be the better person every single time. And then when we step out there, we think we know, and we get our programs and we like, I know what to do because I've been in this, so on and so forth, but we really don't know. And then we go out and we teach students bad habits. Those students become teachers and they teach their kids bad habits. My whole point in saying all of that is, if we keep going in this trajectory, right, how far will HBCU bands go? I asked the question, I think it was either on this show or Talk That Talk. I think it was Talk That Talk. If you go back 30 years and you look at field shows from 30 years ago and you compare them to field shows now, what's changed? So we're looking at another 30 years of a lack of innovation. Because to be quite honest, I mean, I gave 30 years. It's actually been more than that, right? But are we looking for another 30 to 40 years of a lack of innovation, a lack of change, a lack of anything? I mean, it's a fair question. I'm gonna say this, and I know y'all gonna probably fire me up. It's all good. I'm good. I can take it. I'm good. But I can't remember what band it was. It may have been Ohio State, but I don't think it was Ohio State. But somebody did Bluey, like literally made Bluey on the field, played the theme song, and then did all the names, like literally did the theme song, like from top to bottom, right? Mom, boom, 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 boom. Dad, right? And they were yelling, "Mom, Dad!" Whole crowd went nuts. Why can't we think to do stuff like that? Why do we have the same patterns in motion, two-step drills? Why do we have the same format? Come out, drum major entrance, drill, concert formation, dance girls, flag tune, dance routine, off the field. And again, like I said on Talk That Talk, we can cut that daggone dance routine, right? But why? Why do we run from innovation? There's so much stuff out here right now. There's so much content out here to the point to where we can literally do anything, but we just shy away from it. We try to fit what's out there into what we do, and sometimes it just don't translate well. How far will this go? How far will it go? If we refuse to evolve, if we refuse to change, if we continuously push bad habits, because not all habits are good habits, I can tell you that. So, and I know I said I'd table something earlier, and I can tell you now, I completely forgot what it was. Don't get mad at me, but it was a really good point. If I think about it again, trust me, I'm gonna come back to it. But yeah. Finally, Bethune and Southern. It's funny that all these things kind of go into themselves. We looked at Bethune and Southern and we said, man, this is probably going to be pretty good, right? Two sides of the coin, blah, blah, blah. And it might end up being a very good situation. So from what I hear, there were only like 2 songs and they were out. Now, mind you, I haven't seen anything yet. So I'm going off of what was communicated to me. So mind you, apparently they told me it was 2 songs and they were out. So it didn't last that long as far as the 5th quarter was concerned. But then I'm talking about the 5th quarter too. Not the 5th quarter, the halftime. I watched the halftime. Lackluster at best. Lackluster at best. And before I keep going, I saw Valley and Jackson. And I saw Alcorn and UAPB 5th quarter. So I watched both of those. But right now we're going to talk about Bethune and Southern. Because it brings up this pretty basically the same point. There was a time when you would have big games like this, and the halftime was the highlight of the day. Right? And this is no slight to Southern. I'm not saying that this is a negative thing towards Southern or anything like that. I'm just saying their show was the same show that they did for Homecoming. And I don't know. Maybe this is I guess semi-old guy talking. I don't necessarily call myself old. I don't really think I'm old, but right. A game like Bethune, we be preparing for. But our field show presentation would be the preparation, not how many songs we could play against them in the 5th quarter. We would make sure that our field show was undeniably good. And they were both lackluster to me. I mean, we can go and talk about sound quality and all that kind of stuff. I still think that Bethune is the cleanest band in HBCU right now. Cleanest band in HBCU. That doesn't change. But again, I just remember looking at Southern and FAMU, and I remember that Southern FAMU. I can't remember what year it was. It was the year that FAM did. Was it FAM? They did the little heartbeat joint where they all passed out on the field, and then they did the boom boom clear. That joint, top notch, super heck of a field show from both programs, because they understood what the assignment was. They understood that the trajectory of the game or the trajectory of the battle was going to depend upon the halftime. Why have we lost that? That's fine if you want to put all your eggs in one basket in the stands. That's fine. If you want to put your energy in the stands, I'm not telling you not to put your energy in the stands, but why can't you do both? That's my thing. I haven't watched Jackson and Valley's. Matter of fact, I watched Jackson's homecoming because I think Jackson's announcer said something about Valley Dega or something like that, which is really funny. I'm not gonna lie, right? But just that alone is not enough. I want to see a great halftime, and then you can kill them in the stands too. There's nothing wrong with that, but I feel like we just miss that mark every single time, and I feel like we got to do better with that. Or again, going back to number one, I feel like how long is this gonna last? How long is it gonna last? We already got problems when it comes to HBCUs anyway. Between being underfunded, administrators halfway caring about you, not looking out for you, but using you as much as they want to use you. You name it, the list goes on and on. We already have enough against our plate. Why put ourselves in a position to just continue to lose? And please understand what I mean by that, right? I'm not saying that we are all terrible. I'm not even saying anything close to that. What I'm saying is we lack innovation. We lack growth. We lack change. If all we're teaching our kids is to be prepared to crank up, they just cycle in a new generation, new generation, new generation, and it only gets worse and worse and worse. I remember my example. I told you if I talk long enough, I remember my example. A lot of people are gonna be like, Luke, you tripping, man. This ain't a big deal. It ain't a big deal. It ain't a big deal, man. It ain't that serious. I couldn't stand that phrase, it ain't that serious. No, it is that serious. Here's the reason why. You know, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, no, a long time ago, honestly, when we listen to music, more or less R&B, hip hop and R&B, right? When we listen to music, most of the music that made it through the airwaves or made it to the radio was very suggestive, right? Like hidden messages. It wasn't direct, in your face. And then somebody said, well, it ain't that serious. So then they let a couple curse words slip. And then somebody said, oh man, it ain't that serious. Then they let a couple more curse words slip. And they let a little bit more language slip. Now you got what you got today, where everybody has a sexually explicit language. Everybody's talking about something that most of them don't even, a life that most of them don't even live. And anything can make it through the airways now. If you young folks, and I gotta say young folks right now, right at this point, young folks, if you go back and listen to and lived in our time, and lived in my time, our time, 98, 96, 97, 95, all them years, even early 2000s, people had to completely remake a new version in order for them to make that get that music on the radio. We didn't even know what the real music was until we actually bought the album. Why? Because there was a standard until people said, it ain't that serious. It ain't that serious. It ain't that serious. Now it's that serious. And what I'm saying to y'all, and what I'm saying to everybody who's watching right now, at what point will we stop saying it ain't that serious? Because as long as we say that, things gonna keep slipping through the cracks. And we have to keep asking, we're gonna end up asking ourselves, what happened? With that being said, man, I did say that I was going to try to get to some of these questions. So let's get to your questions. This is from J-Man Hope 1745. Everyone has an opinion. Southern's human jukebox takes a backseat to no one. Formation, sound quality, marching, dancing, you name it. Just a sidebar. Why are college students 18 plus often called kids instead of young adults or students? Then we wonder why young adults act like kids. This is actually to my response or my show on BCU being the best sounding band. Thank you for your question. So first of all, I want to say that whatever Southern people or Southern fans or whatever elixir that they drinking, I just want some of that, because the idea of being so deeply ingrained and impassioned in a program that you can't see that there are flaws is just amazing to me. So that's the first thing, right? So outside of that, though, the truth of the matter is, when it comes to university students, most of the time, on average, most kids who enter into university programs are either 18 or 17. And rightfully so, right? It's understandable to call them kids, but a lot of times we do call them students, right? But for me, being someone who was a university band director, I called them both. Those are my students. Those are my kids. And, It just kind of is what it is. But I do understand what you're saying. But that's not why we wonder why young adults act like kids. Young adults act like kids because that is a parenting issue, not a us calling them kids issue. So I think that we probably need to relook at that and, you know, probably truly hone in on why young adults act like kids. But very great, very great question. The next question is Anthony Bosley Bay 1909. This was actually, well, no, I'm going to skip that one because that's not where I want to go. D-Man David, it is kind of whack that this season isn't so active because everybody and their mama is in the SWAC now. I'm guessing that folks just aren't traveling to away games. This was to my show about the Snooze Fest. Yeah, to be quite honest, it does seem like the quote-unquote powerhouses are now all in the SWAC, especially seeing as you got now Bethune and FAM also in the SWAC. You know, a lot of people would probably say that a couple more people need to be in there. Probably the Tennessee States, more or less. Probably Norfolk. I've seen a lot of people say that. But you know, I think there may be some validity to what you're saying because some of the other bigger bands like the Tennessee States and the Norfolk are in different conferences where those programs are not really seeing a lot of bigger programs. But I don't know if that would be the definitive reason as to why it would be considered a snooze fest. All right. Here's my last one. Humphrey Martin 55110. This was also to my snooze fest. It says, this is a general statement of concern that I have about HBCU bands. It seems that if halftime shows are the same format with little or no individuality or innovation, the shows are stale. I see the same performance from the majority of the bands. For example, the show begins with 1, drum majors do some kind of acrobatic stuff, 2, a boring drill for a few minutes follows. You don't have to prove that you can march in a straight line. 3, the dancers come out in their sexy outfits, prance, flip, twist, etc. They have worked their butts off, I'm sure, but there is nothing innovative, and the dance has no connection to the theme, if there is a theme, of the show. If you've seen one show, you've seen the others. Overall effect, boring. 4, whole band dance. Tubas play something, band dances. Dances include shaking of shoulders, fall, sit, or lay down on ground. 5, play a nice ballad somewhere in the program. 6, march off to the school's familiar song. This show format has been the same for 30 to 40 years. Surely we have better imaginations, better shows. Everybody does not have to do the same thing. And another issue, the band announcers. The audience will determine whether the band is great or not. They do not have to be told how great the band is, whether it can be duplicated, etc. The narrative is old and dated. By the way, Norfolk is my favorite because of the obvious high quality sound and musicianship of the group, and also the attention to detail comes through. The music should be the main thing. Loud bands, Jackson State, Southern, etc., lose my interest very quickly. It's really funny that I did read that. I did not plan on reading that specific one, but again, he actually went to the same sentiments that I was talking about on there. The fact that nothing has changed in the last, I don't know how long, but I mean, that's, again, that goes back to what I said. When is there going to be some innovation put inside of what we do, and a bigger and better expectation of what we want to see on in these band programs and these university programs. So one thing he did bring up was announcers, which is one thing I did not bring up. The more I'm listening to announcers, the more that I feel like there needs to be some type of change. But I mean, I think announcers across the board, not just particularly HBCUs, I think predominantly white institutions, their announcers are pretty dry too. So, but I don't know. I think announcers are just announcers. I don't think that we'll ever find announcers that will change the trajectory of the show. I think sometimes you just need to let the show be the show, and the announcers just kind of sit back Maybe give something at the end or the beginning and the end, but not necessarily talk through the whole thing. There are a lot of announcers who do like to talk through the whole thing. And then, honestly, I think some announcers just don't fit for programs. I respect Jackson's announcer. Very articulate. I think he does a great job at what he does. But the way that Jackson's band is, to me, it just kind of seems very odd. The announcer versus the crank up mentality of Jackson. To me, it just doesn't fit. That's just my personal opinion. I think Fam and Bethune, their announcers kind of make sense. But for the most part, I do agree. I think the announcers do overtalk. I think the announcers do try to sell the show just a bit too much. And again, I think that goes back to what I said on either Talk That Talk or on here. The show itself needs to sell itself. If the dance routine is the factor that makes or breaks your field show, that means your field show is trash. And so if your announcer has to sell your dance routine to make it exciting, your field show is trash. So I don't necessarily take anything away from what he said. All right, man. With that being said, man, this has been a great show. I'm glad you guys were able to join me, man. I had to get through this one with the loss of my section leader. It was kind of difficult, but it is what it is. One thing that I have learned about being a God-fearing man is that we are going to go at some point. But it's hard to take sometimes. But with that being said, man, I'm glad you guys were able to join us. Go ahead and give me a like, thumbs up, subscribe to the Passionist Network. We got a lot of great things coming up. We have something that's coming up later on today, so you may want to stay tuned. Go ahead and click that notification bell. If you're watching this on playback, go ahead and put your comments in there, man. We'll try to get to them, on the next show. Other than that, man, this has been great. I'll see you all on next week.